Budget line. We have come to the end of chapter 2. You can follow it in 2.15. Budget line. Budget line is also called as the price line. So demand for good depends upon two things. Demand for good depends upon two things. One is preference and the other one is the purchasing power. When I started this chapter itself, I told you every human being has a desire. Desire does not become demand. Demand means you must have the willingness, the ability to buy the good. So demand for a good depends upon two things. One is the preference for that good, and the second one is called as the purchasing power. The preference pattern only is given in the form of indifference curve. The preference pattern is represented by the set of indifference curves, whereas the purchasing power depends upon the money income and the price of the goods. How do you go and buy a product? First of all, you must have the income. Second one, it depends on the price of the good. If the price of the good is very expensive, you will not buy it. You will say later on we will buy it. Or if you do not have income, you will not go for shopping. So the purchasing power depends upon two things. One is the money income and the other one is called as the price of the goods. Are you able to understand, girls? Demand depends on two things. First one, you must have the preference for that good. Second one, you must have the purchasing power. Preference is given in form of indifference curves. Purchasing power again depends on two things. One is you must have the income to buy. Second one will be the price of the good. இப்போ ஒரு கடைக்கு போறதா இருந்தா முதல்ல நம்ம கிட்ட வருமானம் இருக்கணும். ரெண்டாவது நம்ம வாங்க போற பொருளினுடைய விலை. ஒருவேளை நம்ம வாங்க போற பொருளினுடைய விலை அதிகமா இருந்ததுன்னா நம்ம வாங்க மாட்டோம். ஒருவேளை நம்ம கையில வருமானமே இல்லைன்னா கூட நம்ம அந்த பொருளை வாங்க மாட்டோம். So the preference pattern is represented by the set of indifference curves. The purchasing power depends on the money income and the price of the goods. So the money income and the price of the good only is represented in the form of budget line. Preference is given in the form of indifference curve, whereas the money income and the price of the good is given in the form of the budget line. So the budget line is a downward sloping straight line. The budget line is a downward sloping straight line connecting the x-axis and the y-axis. So the name of the budget line here is AB. AB is the budget line because it connects both the x-axis and the y-axis. And the consumer is buying two goods. He is buying commodity X and he is buying commodity Y. So this is called as the budget line. The last concept is consumer equilibrium. Consumer equilibrium. This is also very, very important. Now, look at this graph. You have the indifference curves. Then you also have the budget line. Here, AB is called as the budget line. IC1, IC2, IC3 and IC4 are the different sets of indifference curves. Okay. So where does the consumer attain equilibrium? The consumer attains equilibrium at the point T. The consumer attains equilibrium at the point T where the budget line is tangential to the indifference curve. This is the budget line. The black color line is called as the budget line. AB is the budget line. And you have a set of indifference curves. IC1, IC2, IC3, IC4. A consumer always likes to have higher level of satisfaction. That is the red color curve. But if he cannot purchase anything on the red color curve because his budget is only AB. He has only money up to the point AB. So he cannot purchase a good in this curve, in the red color curve. Whereas he can purchase goods on the blue color curve, green color curve and yellow color curve because they are all within the budget line AB. But where does the consumer get the maximum level of satisfaction? He gets the maximum level of satisfaction at point T. That point only is called as the consumer's equilibrium. So the consumer reaches equilibrium at the point where the budget line is tangent on the indifference curve. If you see this point, you have the budget line AB and the blue color indifference curve is tangential to the budget line AB. So T is the point of equilibrium as the budget line AB is tangent on the indifference curve IC3. The upper IC means indifference curve, which implies maximum possible level of satisfaction. At equilibrium point, the slope of IC. So what is slope? Slope means the rate of change. So the slope of IC refers to the marginal rate of substitution. Here the consumer is substituting good X for good Y or good Y for good X. So that is only called as marginal rate of substitution. There are two products here, commodity X and Y. And the slope of the budget line, the slope of it is said BL, but actually AB is the budget line, okay? So here they say BL because BL represents the budget line. The slope of the budget line here is AB, okay? The slope of the budget line AB refers to the ratio of price of X to the price of Y, that is Px divided by Py. Therefore, the marginal rate of substitution xy is equal to P of x divided by P of y. That is, they are substituting good x for good y. That's why we say marginal rate of substitution x and y. X means good x, y means good y. Depends on the price of x divided by price of y. So this is the concept of consumer's equilibrium. So we have come to the end of this chapter, girls. So let us recall what all we learned in this chapter. Okay. So we studied about human wants, then the characteristics of human wants. This is a very, very important question. Then we saw the classification of wants. It can be asked as classification of wants or classification of goods. Everything represents the same thing, necessaries, comforts and luxuries. Even if they ask classification of wants, you have to give the answer. If they ask classification of goods also, you have to give the same answer, only this one, necessary, comforts and luxuries. Then we saw the cardinal utility analysis. Utility can be measured in cardinal way as well as ordinal way. So under cardinal utility analysis, we saw the law of diminishing marginal utility, the law of equimarginal utility, and we saw the consumer surplus. Then we saw the law of demand, and we saw the market demand for a commodity, the determinants of demand, then the reasons for exceptional demand curve. We saw the extension and contraction of demand. Extension and contraction happens only because of the change in the price. Shift in the demand happens because of changes in other things, other variable factors. It is not price, but it is other things. Then we saw the concept of elasticity of demand, types of elasticity of demand. There are 4 types of elasticity of demand: price, income, cross, and advertising. Then we saw the levels or degrees of price elasticity of demand: perfectly elastic demand, perfectly inelastic demand, relatively elastic demand, relatively inelastic demand, and unitary elastic demand. Then we saw the measurements of elasticity of demand: Elasticity of demand can be measured in three ways: percentage method, total outlay method, point or geometrical elasticity method. Then the importance of elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand is important for price fixation. It is very necessary for production, for distribution, for international trade, and for planning by the government, and for nationalization of certain resources which are very important for the society. So these are the importance of elasticity of demand. We saw elastic demand and inelastic demand. So look at elastic demand. If the price of Coca-Cola is 1, people buy in large quantities. If it is less, they do not buy anything. They just forget it and walk away. So it is for soft drinks. Whereas if it is inelastic demand, if milk is 80 pounds, $80, people buy it. Even if milk is $2.40, they still buy it, but I still need it because it is a basic commodities. So we saw about elastic demand and inelastic demand. Then ordinal utility approach, which was given by R.J.D. Hallen and Hicks. Then we saw about the indifference curve. We saw indifference map. Then the properties of indifference curve. Then we saw about the budget line and the consumer's equilibrium. So with this, we end chapter 2. Please learn your daily lessons, children. You have to see the videos regularly. You please keep your textbooks open while listening to the video lessons. Then only you will be able to learn it easily. Okay? Thank you, girls.